Yeah, you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, so this is what we try to cover in the time that I have today. I'll look at the history of electricity broadly, and then take us to where we are now, the current state of art. And then I'll talk about the P2P enabling environment. Then I'll answer the question, what is P2P itself? In the course of all this, the best way to actually show what this is about is to talk to you about some of the activities that are currently going on, either within my research group or out there in the world, and then we'll take questions after. So, new age of electricity. If you look at this slide, you'll see that it starts right from the 19th century. The history at the time is that you call this age of coal, electrification of the society. You generate electricity using either coal or hydro. At the time, it was very simple. All you need to do is to gather a bit of coal in your society, in the bush, and you generate electricity that way. But it was very simple. It was a stochastic type of load, very random, and you don't have to actually predict it. That way of generating electricity, obviously, wasn't sustainable. In the 20th century, we moved into generation using fossil fuel. So not just coal, now you have gas, you have oil and nuclear with hydro. But here, what you have is a system where generation is central. So you generate in a very large dam or generate in a very large nuclear power station, and you transport that over a long distance where it is actually consumed. So you call that generation follow loads. That means you basically look for how much energy do people in a particular community needs, and you generate up to the maximum of what they need to in order to avoid blackout. That again, not sustainable because you basically waste a lot of energy, as you will see later. But that wasn't really a problem too, because environmental issue was not really something of concern. Towards the late 20th century, as you know, there's increase in demography. We have high population of people, scarce resources, climate change issues, and so on. And people begin to think about how do we move forward from this? How do we supply energy in the future? And that's where the whole idea of green energy comes from. So you start to use like biomass, wind, in addition to solar, and so on. And the energy system is shifting. The former consumer, which is what most of us are really, we are people that consume electricity. We are thinking of becoming prosumer. By prosumer, you mean you generate electricity using your solar, so you're actually like a producer, but at the same time, you consume electricity, so you are a consumer. So basically, you're a prosumer. And then, there's also this huge interest in environmental issues. People are now much more aware than before, hence the need for what is known as smart grid. So it is all idea of smart grid is basically that you want load to follow generation. Load to follow generation. Remember, the previous one was about generation follows load, and it was generated centrally. But in this case, you are looking at a situation where you have load follow generation, and it is now distributed generation instead of central generation. Okay, so that's a recap of the history. So the next section, really, I will be covering smart systems and P2P energy environment. So we look at decarbonization and the impact of that in terms of why we need P2P. Then we look at smart grid, advanced metering infrastructure. We look at distributed generation, virtual power plant, electrification of vehicles, IoT, and transactive energy. So You see, this graph is basically for anyone who is interested in the details of this graph, we can take that offline. This is basically to tell you the scale of the decarbonization challenge. This was modeled by an institute here in Manchester about what the UK government needs to do in order to reach the decarbonization target of 2050. In order to get to net zero carbon by 2050, there are 40 different technology interventions that have been identified. And even if all these technology are all put together, we will still not be able to reach that target. There's another scenario that if you include carbon capture, then you might be able to get there in 2050, but that is if you have to spend recklessly without restriction. But we know that that's never going to happen, because there's always going to be trade-off between what you want to do and what you actually have money to be able to achieve. So the point here is that the scale is high. The challenge to decarbonize is very, very high. So we need every technology on the table to make this happen. So that's number one motivation. The next motivation, and what is really on the table, is the fact that we, like I said earlier on, want load to actually follow generation. And I will explain that briefly. If you look at this graph, the one on the left here, most of us, when we wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you go to heat your room, you do so many things early in the morning. Therefore, you have peak of your consumption very early in the morning, and then you go out, and then that kind of level up in the afternoon. It comes up in the afternoon for lunch and for other activities. Then when people come back later in the evening, you have a very high peak during that period. But actually, without smart technology, what we do in order to avoid blackout or power cut, as it may be used in some cases, is that you have to generate above your peak in order to avoid blackout. So basically, every energy that you generate around here in the middle is a waste. So a good example for this is if you just think about people traveling very early on Monday morning, like 9 a.m., you have a number of people that want to travel maybe from Lagos to Abuja, or from one part of the city, country to another, because they are going to resume work and they came to visit a family over the weekend. So everybody wants to travel at that time. So you just imagine that you have train like 50 just trying to move all these people between 7 o'clock and 9 o'clock to get them to work. But what you find is that after 10 o'clock, actually, you don't need more than 2 train coaches or so to then move people. So you have 48 of trains that you don't really need. So which is in essence a waste. So the way transport is modeled in some cases is that you actually use something to incentivize people or to de-incentivize them. So for example, to get from Manchester to London before 9 a.m. on Monday morning, or any morning actually, except Saturday and Sunday, it's almost £300. But if you purchase your ticket like 2 weeks ahead, and you are traveling after 10 o'clock, and you return back before 4 or 3 o'clock, you may be paying less than £80, sometimes even as low as £50. So you then have to decide whether you want to waste £300 just because you have to travel between 7 and 9 o'clock in the morning, or between 4:30 and 7 p.m. in the evening when everybody's coming back from work. So that's the whole concept here, is that we're trying to balance demand and supply, but you can only make that happen when you have smart grid. You've heard me said smart grid about 2 or 3 times. The question is, what is smart grid? So for those in the room that are not familiar with the terms, it's basically the traditional grid is what we have, where everything is kind of generated far away and you transport it over a long distance. And if there's blackout in one end, you don't know, you have to inform them or something. But in smart grid, you bring together smart and intelligent system plus electric distribution network. So the marriage of electric distribution network and the intelligent network is known as smart grid. So what this enables is, one, observability, meaning you're able to observe what is going on in the network. You're able to control it, you're able to manage it. and you're actually able to do what is known as self-healing. If there's a fault or problem in any part of the network, this can be corrected automatically without any human intervention. That's what smart grid is about. And that is one of the key enabler of what I'm talking about later. So another thing that is useful is advanced metering infrastructure. So we call it smart meters. So instead of having your prepaid meter or the old traditional meter, you have smart meter. Smart meter is able to tell you your bill on, every second you want it, every 15 seconds, you can see what you are using, real time, and so on. And this is very useful because it tells us what is going on across the network, not just about your consumption, but if you are using solar, you have solar panel on your roof and you are generating electricity, this smart meter will tell us how much you are generating. And if you are consuming part of that, it will tell us how much you are consuming. And if there's this difference between these two, that's called net metering. That is what you can then sell to the grid or you sell it to your neighbor, as you will see later. One great component of smart grid is the fact that we have various sources of energy. So it's not just about hydro or solar and so on. You have, varieties of energy sources. But you want to have a top level overview of these sources of energy. So for example, in your house, in one house, if you have electric vehicle connected, you have solar panel, you have wind, and you have diesel generator as well. You need to be able to know at just a glance, say how much is the total energy generation in this house, in this business, in this company, in this city right now. And you also want to know how much energy is being consumed right now, and to be able to predict in the next 1 hour, how much is the expected energy consumption. Based on the weather condition, how much energy can I generate from wind or from solar and so on. So the system that makes you, that gives you the opportunity to actually have this top level view is known as a virtual power plant or central controller. So a virtual power plant or central controller aggregates all your energy generated and also gives you a level of energy that is being consumed and is able to forecast and then tell you the price forecast and the demand forecast on the platform. So another, enabler for peer-to-peer is electrification of vehicles. The car that is on your screen is known as the Nissan Leaf. I bought one of these for one of my projects. I bought about 2 of them for one of my projects that we investigated on. Now we have about 10 of different vehicles like this. Nissan Leaf at the time, when we purchased about 4 years ago, 3 years ago, has 30 kilowatt hour of energy. And just to put that in context, I don't know, if someone can give me a figure of what average energy consumption in Nigeria in a household is, but I did a bit of Googling, and let's put that as about 1 kilowatt. That's pretty low actually, because the UK household energy consumption on the average is between 8 to 10 kilowatt hour the whole day. That's if you take away heating and heating of the water or AC, just your electricity appliances is between 8 kilowatt hour and 10 kilowatt hour. So, but from the data that I gather in Nigeria, it's around 1 or 2, but actually that differs between cities and rural area. But let's give it like 10. So what this really means is that this car on its own, theoretically, should be able to power 2-3 buildings within the UK. So if you have this car and you plug it to 2 houses, or 3 of them, you can actually give them electricity for 1 full day, theoretically. But that is Nissan Leaf. The one on your screen actually is a car known as Tesla S85. Tesla S85 has 90 kilowatt hour, and it can travel up to 225 miles before you need to recharge. So roughly, this is saying you can basically power about 10 UK households of energy. So if you want more information about that, there's references at the bottom of these slides and some of the paper that we published in this area. So now, electrification of vehicle is coming. You know, there's a high rise in the number of charging units in the UK and across the world. There's high rate of purchase of this type of vehicles. And the government is actually driving this because it helps in their decarbonization agenda. So this is going to happen. So basically, you know, I've shown you what virtual power plant is, which is an aggregation of all your energy consumption and energy production in a particular site. We've spoken about smart grid. We've talked about advanced metering infrastructure or smart meter. We've looked at the impact of electrification of vehicles and the role of electrification of vehicles. Why electrification of vehicles is actually even much more important is the fact that this is one of those things that you buy. And sometimes you wonder, why do you have cars? Because 93 or so percent, between 85% to 93% of the time, you don't actually drive your car, except if it's a fleet car or a truck. Or every other car that you have, you drive them to work in the morning. For those who are working, you park them, and you don't get back to them until another 7 or so hours. Right? The question is, can you not be charging that in the afternoon using solar? And then if it's a good storage, like I've just presented, and you take this back to your street later in the evening, it powers your house and maybe 3 or 4 more houses within your neighborhood. That is the future. And if in 2020, we have a Tesla car that has 90 kilowatt hour, imagine what you're going to have by 2025, by 2020, and maybe 2050. So it's coming, it's going to happen. So here I just want to show you, you know, that this is not just a theory. Some of these they're not theory, they're things that we've actually done. The streets that I'm showing you right now is called Oxford Road. That's where my university is based. My office is just based on this main road. So on this road, we have 2 universities, University of Manchester and University of Manchester, Manchester Metropolitan University, with student population of more than 70,000. So it's one of the busiest roads in the whole of Europe, actually. So we chose this road, so it's called Oxford Corridor at the moment. This road was chosen to demonstrate what smart city of the future is going to look like. What will happen if we bring all these technologies that we're talking about as intervention on this road to manage vehicles, to manage buildings, to make buildings more efficient? What is going to happen? What are we going to see? So we turn this road into a smart road. So actually this road right now, as I speak to you, only buses are allowed on this road and bikes. So first and foremost, we received about 60 million pounds in terms of investment to carry out a project. This was around 2016. Myself and about 23 other partners across Manchester, we investigated what is known as IoT for Smart City project, where we, you know, from smart bikes to smart bus stop, smart building, and so on. So this project was led by Cisco and Siemens and the Manchester City Council, and a good number of us, including 2 universities on the road. These are some of the things that we did. So we kind of use technology to increase patronage of bus and tram. And then we use technology on mobile phone to tackle antisocial behavior, which are young people that sometimes, you know, bully older people or misbehave on the buses and coaches. So that system that can actually inform the police if there's problem. So we make the bus stop to be a very safe place. The bus stop is, you know, equipped with intelligent sensors and intelligent systems. Same with the transport. So we bought a few electric bikes, e-bikes that charge using electricity, and you can take them around the city. The smart energy, you know, the street lighting also were kind of smart, you know, made smart, and also smart parking as well. Then some of the buildings on the corridor were installed with solar panel and other renewable energy resources and connected together on a platform. So on the back of that, we also received about 28 million euros. This is a EU project, so about 4 of us from Manchester are involved, and the other 20, about 16 partners are from Europe. So this project is called Triangulum. The aim of Triangulum is to use this corridor that I just showed you and other corridors in 2 other cities to demonstrate, disseminate, and replicate the whole idea of smart city, smart grid, smart energy system, and electric vehicle using ICT. So again, we renovated a few buildings to make it super efficient. We bought a few electric vehicles. So like I said earlier on, I bought 2 at a time for my side of the project, and my colleague from the other university, they hired 5. Since the 2 that I bought, my university has actually bought 8 other ones because they can see the advantage of that, because they now use it for different things. They use it for nursing students that want to visit hospitals. This the car they hire now, and for other things. We have also cargo bikes. So these cargo bikes, instead of using cars for transporting stationaries from one part of the university to the other, or from one restaurant within the university to another, or for waste and other things, they now use electric cargo bikes. The fourth thing that we actually do is what is known as central controller. So central controller is what I explained earlier on as virtual power plant. So something that is able to aggregate all this in one platform. So it knows your consumption, it's aware of your generation, but also it has ability to actually intervene. What I mean by that is it's able to turn something down. So if it thinks, look, there's a heat pump, or there is a particular room that is not being used at the moment, it can turn it on remotely and intelligently. So I'll give you an example. So before we had this project, we used to start heating the university building, most of the buildings, from 6 a.m., 6:30, because students start arriving around 8 a.m. But with this system, that is done, it used to be done manually. But with this system, you do not have to do it manually, because it has the ability to know, one, what is the temperature in that building right now? What would the temperature be in the next 1 hour if I turn it on now? And then it starts, gradually reducing the heating time by maybe 15 minutes. And then you check whether people are complaining, the comfort level of the people. And actually, people don't mind. Then increase that to 30 minutes, increase it to 45 minutes, and so on and so forth. And you realize that when you get to a point where people actually start feeling a bit cold, and then you feel, okay, well, this is fine now. That's kind of optimization using this virtual power plant or central controller. With that, you save money. With that, you don't have to generate as much as you currently generate. So we also, as part of Triangulum project, have what is known as Triangulum I. This is a cloud, a platform in the cloud that gives you opportunity to actually have data about transport within the city, the weather condition, renewable. You have everything that are all connected. You gather data, and they are all fed into this platform. And because you know what is going on in this platform, you can then begin to analyze data, compare data. It's called big data, because you can correlate the impact of generation with air quality, the impact of generation on the comfort of the people, and so on and so forth. So students, PhD students, and postdocs and academics are all using this, and city wide across Europe, they are using this now for planning and forecasting. So specifically to Manchester Met, for example, this is the building I'm showing you now. Is one of our campuses. We have 3 campuses around. This is a brand new one that was built around, I think, 2015 or so. So in the middle, you have a large office residence. So you have lecture theaters, you have lecturers' offices, and you have rooms for meetings and so on. So here we install solar panel, about 152 kilowatt hour on the roof. In addition to that, we have this on the right hand here is actually a battery. It's about 400 kilowatt hour. That's like a container, you know, if you are familiar with a big container. So the battery is as big as that. And then we have what is known as a combined heat pump. We have electric vehicles, about 22 points of electric vehicle connected in the car park. There's a car park next to this battery. And then you have student hall of residence all around the office here. So you have this big office, and then you have this hall of residence for students. So, and the one here is the energy center where you have the batteries and intervention and the electric car parks that I've been talking about. So this is a very good mini microgrid that demonstrates a good smart city. So you have students living area with some shops, and then you have office. So in the morning, everybody leaves their hall of residence, the hostels, and they go to the office. Of course, energy consumption within the hostels kind of go down, you know, to the barest minimum. And then the one in the offices go up because everybody's plugging their laptop, plugging their computer. And in the evening, the reverse is the case. And with this, we're able to test how a big city we act, because this is smart. This particular campus is actually a smart campus. So we're able to then test how this, if it's scale up the entire city, can we use this small miniature of a city to replicate what happened in a large city. So that's the research that we are currently carrying out. One of the things we are doing here is known as gamification of energy, which is how can you apply the concept of game to incentivize people or to kind of help people in the way they think about energy consumption. So for example, you know, we gave students a voucher encouraging them to download an app on their phone. And then, you know, we say, well, on your corridor or within your hostel area, whoever consumes the least energy over the week gets maybe 10 pounds. And you can see, would that influence them? Would that help them to see that, well, that's actually the way you are currently wasting a lot of energy. There are times that you could turn off some systems that you are not actually using. So we've talked, that's smart grid, but you see, smart grid is good. So we've made this campus that just show you made it smart in the way we've connected everything together, in the way we've collected data and continue to analyze data. But what you can see about smart grid is that actually smart grid is to connect things together, is to make things intelligent, is to make things observable. So you can observe it, you can control it and manage it. But actually, there is no economic. It's not about economics. It's not about market. It's not about selling and buying. Hence, there's a new concept known as transactive energy. So by transactive energy, you are talking about a system of economic and control mechanism that allow dynamic balancing of demand and supply across the entire electric infrastructure using value as a key operational parameter. So basically, you want to say, what is the value that you bring on the table? And we will be paying you based on that value. Okay, so that's what transactive energy is all about. So in transactive energy, you have platform. Within that platform, everybody says, well, I have this amount of energy I want to sell. The other one is saying, I have this that I want to buy. And based on the basic economics of supply and demand, we determine the price, and then we share, you know, value based on that. So I have covered new age of electricity. We've seen that we can't carry on the way it's been since 19th century, and things have changed since then. And we've now looked at the enabling environment, and I've been able to show you a few projects, both the one that we're doing, and you know, there are other projects out there of how we have actually created smart energy systems that have enabled peer-to-peer energy trading. We've looked at how decarbonization of the energy sector is very important and is a big challenge. We've looked at what smart grid is about, smart metering, distribution generation, virtual power plant, electrification of vehicle, and I've just talked about transactive energy. So I'm getting to more than half of my talk right now. The question then is what is peer-to-peer energy trading? So peer-to-peer is all around us. Peer-to-peer basically is maybe the simplest way to look at it is, I don't know if anyone knows what Isusu is. It's basically, instead of taking your money to the bank and you save money in the bank, and then you get a loan from the bank and the bank is charging you. You get 5 guys together in your community and you say, well, guys, every month you bring 200 naira. And but one of us will take 1,000 naira or something like that. And every month you pay your 200 naira, but actually the next person is taking away 100 naira. What have we done or achieved in doing that is that you've kind of, you've gotten rid of the central man, which is the bank, that's charging you money, it's asking you to go and bring collateral and all that. So that's what peer-to-peer trading is about. It's between, it's among peers, really, instead of having a central system controlling you and telling you how to live your life. So this has been used in many ways. So for example, in file sharing, if some of you may be aware of Napster, where you can upload files. Then if you have a video, you can upload video and so on. So it's, that's been around. I'm sure we are familiar with Uber. Uber is kind of, instead of having taxi man or so on, you can basically call a taxi using an app, and you move from one part to the other. There's carpooling also, where it's not just about you calling a taxi, but about you using your own vehicle as well. As are you going to the office and people around your neighborhood, whether you know them or not, they can carpool with you as you go to work, and they pay you some money. And days that you don't want to travel or you don't want to drive, you do the same. We also have that in eBay. So eBay is a concept where, most of us, I'm sure we are familiar with this. You can sell things there, you can buy your own thing. Unlike in other shops where you only go there if you want to buy, and they determine the price. On eBay, I put stuff there, whether new or old, secondhand, and I sell, and at the same time, you can buy from me. We've seen that with Airbnb as well, where, instead of going to the hotel, you can decide to actually go to somebody's house. You pay them for how much they charge you per a room instead of getting the whole building and so on. So we've seen that so it's basically the whole concept is to share resources, collaborate without any central authority. It is autonomous, it is self-organizing, and it's a concept known as distributed system. So let me bring it home now in terms of how it works, maybe in Nigeria. I'm sure we are familiar with this picture. This is a picture of somebody who's gone to someone else's house to fetch water. So when I was growing up in Nigeria, I saw a number of days where when you don't have water from the water board in your house, you think of someone in the community that's got water, so you may move maybe several houses, maybe sometime in the mosque or church, or somebody who has a borehole in their house, and you fetch water. So we're already doing that in a way. So that man has water, he has excess of it, and instead of you going inside of his house and disturb him, he's put a tap in front of his house. You can get water, sometimes free. They actually, I believe, these days is also being monetized. So this is kind of peer sharing. But let's imagine that this sister is Sister Oluchi, or any name that we may give to her, all right? And she lives at the very end of this, this community here, but she's traveled all the way to fetch water here, okay? So, which is fine, but let's look at another intelligent way. If all the houses here are all connected underground with pipes, And this man, instead of sharing, you traveling to take your water, when there's no water from the water board, there's a way he can actually transfer water directly to your room. And there are meters all around that tells him how much he's giving to different people. And there are meters in your house that tells you how much energy you've received from him. I'm sure many people will be willing to pay him. And let us assume, because this man alone at this corner, or if it's a church or a mosque at this corner, might not be able to give everybody around enough water. Let's assume we have several people in this neighborhood, about 5 or 10 of them, that have the capacity to do water treatment and then supply water to this community. Everybody will have water. Okay, so that's the whole concept. So we already do that in a sense with water. Like I said, we share with, somebody that has excess water in his borehole, share to the community already, because that's the concept, African concept. There's this sharing thing and community agenda, which is really good. But you see, this is not easy with electricity because, okay, the regulation will not allow it. Electricity is actually much more dangerous. So it's not easy to do that with electricity. Hence, the whole concept of community energy consumption and so on is coming on. So about 3 years ago, we received funding. So again, my team, Oxford University, Bath Imperial University, and 5 South Korean companies or institutions, we had this. They were giving 1 million to us in the UK, 1 million to South Korea. And the whole idea is we should create a concept, look at a concept where we can get buildings to sell energy to each other in the community. So at any particular point in time, you could be the seller, so the other person could be the buyer, and you might be someone who is always buying and never sell because you don't have anything to sell, and so on and so forth. So we carried out that project over 3.5 years, which actually just finished a few months ago. So during that period, we did analysis of prosumer data analysis that was done by Bath University, market operation and so on, and some algorithm were carried out by Oxford. We at University of Manchester Met University, we look at operation and optimization. And we also designed the platform, which you can see on the right hand, which enable this. But most of what we did, and in partnership with South Korea, theoretical ways of which we can enable this peer-to-peer trading of energy. And ultimately we've achieved where, and some of the publications are just at the bottom of the slide there. So we now have a platform here where actually we can demonstrate that between, say, 5 prosumers or 5 peers, 5 people in a community, if they have solar energy or wind or different or electric vehicle within, they can actually transfer flexible energy. We call it flexible energy. So if you have excess energy in your building, you should be able to move it to somebody else and get paid for that. So coming home, really down home now, a few months, almost a year now, there was a call by the UK government, UKRI, and the department, DFID, as we know it in Nigeria. So they kind of ask people to bid into a fund where, if you have idea of how you can solve the trilemma of energy, which is sustainability, energy security, reducing cost, which is all about transforming energy supplies, advancing energy access, enabling consumer affordability, improving energy efficiency, and decarbonization of the air. So we put together a proposal, and I'm happy to announce that we are awarded about 650 or so thousand pounds. 3 of us, so that including my team at Manchester Metropolitan University. There's a company called Q Energy in Manchester, and a company in Abuja called Via Energy. So the 3 of us, we put together an idea known as Nice Energy. So Nice Energy is, from the full meaning of Nice Energy is Nigeria Intelligent Clean Energy Marketplace. So here we want to demonstrate, we are demonstrating that we started the project in November actually, last year. So the aim is to demonstrate how we can do this peer-to-peer energy trading and sharing. And the concept basically that we have is we have a test bed in Nigeria right now in Abuja. So we've identified a school. This school will be installing a solar panel of reasonable level of solar panel on the roof of some of the building in the school. And around the school is actually, we have about 10 identified communities. We've signed agreement with them. So some of them we have solar, some of them we have solar and battery, some of them just battery. And the aim is really that we will be able to demonstrate how we can share energy from this school to the community. So for example, during the day, you have everybody is in the school and the school needs energy, and then you have solar panel on the roof. But later in the evening, actually, the roof is still generating electricity. There's battery at the school, but the school may not need energy at that time. How can this be shared with the community? So all this will be metered, so we know how much energy is coming from the school to the community. And the community as well, the person at home may not need energy at the time. They might have gone to work. So is there any way we can harvest energy from the community to the school so that they don't have to use generator, or they use less capacity of diesel generation and so on. So in addition to this, we're actually having a replica of this community that I've just presented in my lab at the university. So we've ordered some of the PVs, the battery and so on, maybe a low scale in the lab, so that we can also demonstrate the same thing in the lab. And the aim is to acquire data from the test bed in Abuja, use that data to optimize the test bed we have in the university, and then create a digital twin, a replica of this is a software which can be scaled up. So we can say, well, this is just 2 school buildings and 10 local buildings within the community, and they are trading energy between them. If we then have like a whole city, we just go to our software and change a few parameters in the software, and it will be able to tell us the business model, how much will it cost, what energy are we going to be saving, how much with the government or whoever wants to do this, the business community will need in order to scale this up. So that's part of the modeling system that we're currently doing. So it gives us some energy. Part, at the center of this system that I've just shown you in this slide is virtual power plant, because it is that VPP that will give us the consumption, the forecast and generation within this community. Then there's also artificial intelligence, AI system within the whole concept that is going to be able to optimize and tell us when to transfer energy from one part or one building to another, and the best time to actually do that. And maybe is there any way we can actually encourage some people not to consume now because it's too expensive, maybe to wait till later before consumption. Even though this may sound a bit futuristic, but it's right there in Nigeria. And I think it's something that is going to take off and take off really good. So in rounding up, the last project I'm going to show you is called Energy IQ. We just received, I started that in December. We received 2-point-something million from Canada and the UK government to demonstrate energy as a service. So we're doing that within Manchester. And the whole thing, aim is actually to use artificial intelligence, combine it with a smart platform to see how the volatility of energy market and the constraint of the grid network can all be optimized and help people in their energy consumption. Very similar to the peer-to-peer energy trading, but this is more of optimizing energy usage. So we have a platform like this where people will see what they are consuming and how that compare with the market prices. So things will be installed, and we'll be using, there's this Tesla battery in one of our clients' building that we'll be using in conjunction with other things. So lastly, this is a project that we look into to kind of carry out with Manchester Airport and some other partners. So here we are looking at different types of vehicles. They behave in different ways. Some of them on the road all the time, some parked 90-something%. How can we bring on taxis, Uber, and the rest, if they are all electric vehicles? How can we bring all this together in a very smart way so that we can use that to change people's behavior and create new business model in the area of electric vehicle and a smart energy system. So thank you for listening. And then I hope that has been able to whet your appetite in the area of smart energy system, particularly in peer-to-peer energy trading. So I'll be happy to take questions from you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Engineer Zansi, you want to go ahead?
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, sir, for that amazing presentation. We would like to, at this point, we would like to ask for questions. If you have questions or concerning infrastructure, concerning the viability, concerning the regulation of it, you know. So I know somebody is already asking on the chat some questions. So please, we will taking questions now. Okay, there's a comment from Engineer Akintayo around that there's a problem around this area about people willing to pay and about payment. So I think his concern is about payment. You know, okay, so let's take comments now. If you have any questions, please, you have the raise hand on the Zoom, so you can just raise your hand and then we'll do you. So, is there any questions? Okay, maybe while we're waiting, maybe we can address payment. There's a concern, sir. There's someone on the chat dropped a concern as regards people's willingness to pay for this service. I think that's his concern. His concern is in this. Okay, there's another concern about regulation. That what is next as regards regulation. Okay, so Mrs. Miriam's hand is up. Can we give her audio, or can she enable audio herself? And Miriam, we'll take your question now, please.
Okay. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. This is a wonderful presentation. Thanks to the prof. Now, I was just trying to take some notes while he was giving it, but a lot of things, a couple of questions popped up while the presentation was going on. First, you have the Abuja project, the Nice Energy in Abuja. I wanted to find out when it is kicking off. That's one. And then when it comes to the management of this project, when I mean management, how will I put it now? When it comes to getting use cases, I'm sure Abuja will throw up many in terms of actual use cases, how it's happening, and then we can take learnings from that. But the idea is how do we optimize it? If you look at our way of life in the community, the structure that is already on ground with the power distribution companies and all that, I guess regulation also will play into that. But how do we optimize it so that we can fit it into the environment as is today? That's one question. And then the second thing is, if you take the Abuja project, and based on your experience, what time frame would you say we can be looking at this coming to play within our Nigerian sector, maybe in the next 2 years or thereabouts? So that's my questions for now. Thank you very much. And I'm not an engineer, please. Thank you, Zanzi.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
So,
sorry, because can everyone hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I will just try to address.
Just a minute, Bamidele. Please, okay. Can you stream the video of the person that is speaking? Because I don't know why the Zoom is not changing automatically. What we have there now, as Bamidele is speaking, is Zanzi's video.
It's my video, yes.
Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. So I'll just try to address the questions, maybe all of them, by saying, actually, the way things work, can we try to mute? Okay. Okay. All right. So the way the approach really is usually that you want to, in order to solve a big challenge, you know, to address a challenge like this, one is basically to identify the need. Is this a big need? Is this necessary? Is this something that we really want to do? Because if it's obvious that it's something that is very important, it's important not just to the people, is important to the government, is important to our future. What you will find is that the government will be interested, money will be voted towards this, and usually there will be budget put aside, obviously, and the industrial sector too will be very happy to participate. And if all this, you know, what I've just said now are true, I don't see what the policymaker will be doing if they can't change policy because of that. So actually what we are doing here is usually what we call a demonstrator. So we are using a simple test bed to demonstrate that this is possible. And actually part of our remit in this project is to go to the policy makers within Nigeria. We're already doing it here in the UK. And by the way, this is, even in the UK, this is not necessarily something that is everywhere. So we still have to change regulation to make this happen. But you know, regulators like the lady that spoke earlier on, that, you know, I'm not an engineer. Of course, most of the decision makers, they don't have to be engineers. But when you present hard facts and you can see how it benefits people, it's easy to change their mind and the perception about it. But you can't change it by just giving them a paper, a good journal paper. And this demonstrates that people, their cost of electricity will reduce by 50% if they do this, or their livelihood will be better this way. Sometimes better to demonstrate it. And, you know, thankfully, we're able to get this funding from UK government to demonstrate in Nigeria. So about the question about when it's kicked off, actually already kicked off. We started last year. We are, I think, 6 months into the project now. And I think in another, if I'm were to be giving this talk, well, COVID, if we put COVID-19 out of the whole equation, because that will actually determine when we can install the panels now. But the actual system, the embedded system that is going to connect everything together, we are almost 70% there. And I believe our aim actually is that before the end of this year, we'll be able to invite people from the parliament, we'll be able to invite the media, you know, from the public to come and see how this thing operates and then explain how we can scale that up. So it's not something very far away. It's something that I think by next year, you should be able to see a system that is working in Abuja. About payments, okay. I don't think payment is really a problem. So by that, what I mean is that this is not going to introduce a new problem that was not there before. So for those who had issues paying before, then they might still have this issue, but less of it. For those that didn't have issue, you know, paying their bills before, this is even, you know, better. So for example, if you know, some part of Lagos, I'm sure for those who live in Lagos, at least I know of Lagos. So you have estates actually where energy is generated from somewhere else privately, and then they have 24-hour energy supply. So if people like that were to apply this or that, they will actually be paying less over a long period of time, obviously, because there will be capital expenditure involved. But I don't see payment as so much of a problem because you have this metering system actually. And the good thing about smart meter is that, you know, you pay, you know, it's all linked, it's all intelligent. So it's just like saying, well, you're going to give me this 5G or you're going to give me this 4G, which we have on our phone. And then maybe there's going to be payment problem. No, there's no payment problem, because if you don't, pay for your data, you're not going to be able to make phone call. Okay, so you are part of a network where it's all intelligent. If you supply solar from your roof to the network, there's a net metering, which is basically saying, well, between so months and so months, you've supplied X to the network, and you have consumed X maybe from the network. Therefore, because you have consumed more, you pay this. But actually, because you consume less, you will be paid. So you are a prosumer, you are in business. So yeah. So look at it as a marketplace. So it's no longer about consuming electricity where payment is a problem. Look at it as a business. It is now an energy market where you are trading. So I believe I've answered all the questions I have here. So in terms of use cases and how do we optimize it, I think the best way to optimize is actually to demonstrate that it can work. And then once you demonstrate that and you convince people it can work, you'll be able to get investors to be interested, and then you can replicate that in other places. So you can move from one part of Abuja to another part, to Lagos, to the rest of the world, and share ideas. So obviously, Nigeria network will be slightly different from what is happening in other countries. So the experience we've acquired from South Korea, we can kind of correlate that with what we have in the UK. We are doing, this new big project in Canada. When you bring all this together, we can, harness this acquire skills and experiences, and then use that to optimize what is going on in Nigeria and across the world.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Can you hear me? Okay, we have about 13 people who have raised their hands while you were speaking to ask questions. So I think the way we're going to go about it, we're going to let everybody ask their questions, and then at the end of it, because there may be some questions that you can answer, collectively and all of that. So we'll take notes and then we'll answer everything at once. Okay, so Engineer Olusegun, I think we can start taking questions from those that have raised their hands to ask questions. Thank you.
Okay, Engineer Innocent, you can go ahead. Engineer Innocent, you can go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Adebisi, I can't thank you enough for this presentation. I'm actually blown away with what the future holds for not only Nigeria, but for the world, and the impact the digitization and what artificial intelligence can do to be able to make life a lot easier for everyone. But specifically, a lot has been said in Nigeria on industrial parks, and I see a direct correlation with the energy smart usage, which almost brings that closer home to another visa of opportunity if people can share energy in the same corridor. And I think for this current COVID-19, it actually has now reshaped our mindset on resource utilization and allocation, because we really have less resource available globally. And the interesting part for me is the scalability of the Tesla batteries, which for me, I don't know what is being done in that space, unpacks the whole limitation on solar energy technology, which is really one of the drawbacks of deployment in Nigeria. Because you talk about efficiency, which ties directly to solar energy. If you have a home, say of multiple flats in one place, different utilization, it's really, really difficult to, at least as we know it today, that to rely on solar to run everything. And I guess with the battery technology that is keep evolving, hopefully we can get there. But my only concern is around sharing. That's a cultural hindrance locally in Nigeria. People cannot even come together to buy a flat. Not to talk about, coming together to buy energy. I guess it's a demand and supply issue. But what I want to check with you in your research on the prototype you started, what are the enablers to make this actually sellable in the country? Because this is really something so fundamental of sharing. Even within the estate, people are not even willing. Everybody is running generator. People are not even willing to come together and buy a single generator to be able. So in your research, in terms of deployment, what are you seeing in that space that can help to unblock this? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Engineer AKW. To proceed on this, I would advise if we can try as much as possible to use names so that we can be addressed properly. But what the next person, Engineer AKW, I don't know if you can unmute yourself and go ahead.
Maybe you call the next person.
We have Adedayo.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say good morning. Yeah. Well, my name is Odishatuki Adedayo. Well, I'm calling from UK as well. I will appreciate the caller, the presenter. He did a very good job. Just saying what is on ground in Nigeria in relation to what we've got in the UK. I think where you started in Abuja is quite good, but I think there's the same similarity of where you started with Abuja and probably UK, because Abuja seems to be kind of like an organization that is quite set. Most people there can afford most things. They have the generators, their boreholes and everything. But it's a good place because that will give you an idea that things will work. But you're talking about the payment in this part, and payment as well. But I know that I did quite a lot of jobs while I was working in Lagos as well before I traveled. We've done a lot of studies on willingness to pay. Obviously, when we've had the results, people are willing to pay for infrastructures that work, especially when things work. Now, irrespective of that, we haven't got good planning of where to send bills. When things work, Nigerians are willing to pay. You would take it, for example, the mobile network phone that we're using. Most people don't even know what network they're using. All they do is that they're just topping up and they're paying, and it works. So we could learn from that. And also, I don't think my question now is, how are you going to now push your projects away from that area to where the people who are less, I won't say maybe can afford it, maybe from that organized area to a bit where people can afford it more, or that they need it more than the areas where they have everything or most things that help them in their environment. My other question is about training. You've got a good platform, good setup for people here. But what things do you have in place for the younger ones coming and where they can train them, that they can bring the same knowledge into the country? Because we have all these things here where we can work and it does work. But how we can't continue to live like that if we don't have legacy that we're going to leave behind for younger people. Is there anything like training that we want to probably bring people here to the UK, train them, and then set it up back for them to be able to work on, and then it will continue on like that? And finally, it's about the private sector participation. I know that the government has got a lot of things. It's quite difficult to get through the government, not about that, unless you have people at the top that can really push things through. In terms of regulations, I know that it's going to be very, very difficult. What things do we have in the moment that can be able to push us to that stage where we know that everybody will come around, at least? So when we know that you can register your business as an energy sector or energy sector business, that you want to start something in this line. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Engineer Nimot?
Yes.
Engineer Nimot?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the very insightful presentation. Your case study, I don't know if you are currently studying the Lagos Solar Project, which covers about 176 schools and 11 healthcare centers. We have some of these things already. It would be good to know if it's part of your case study. It will be good to know the performance and how this can be replicated in maybe other learning institution or healthcare center, or even how this now fits into some of the models we are looking at. Then part of the challenges I've seen with that is the climate effect on the solar panel surfaces and the supporting members. How has that been put into consideration into other things you want to do? Then Lagos, for instance, is about 18 million, and maybe the informal sector, I don't know what the percentage is, but they also constitute a major percentage of energy consumers. So if we're to produce clean energy for these informal sectors, how can we go about it? Putting into consideration that Lagos State is the most populous state in Nigeria and also the lowest that has land mass. So how do we cater for the space for the informal sector that probably we want to install on the roof? Their roof is not so strong enough to support the solar panel. And there is high tendency that when you put in batteries in a facility, they might be stolen or destroyed. How do you overcome that challenging? Then also, we've talked a lot about generation. I anticipate maybe about 75% of our need. How do we go about transmitting? Are we laying new transmission line, or are we relying on the old existing transmission system that we're not very sure of their capacity and integrity? Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Engineer Nimot. Temitayo. Okay, we have L-CAN, L-C-A-N, I don't know, L-CAN.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
My name is Adewale. Thank you very much for wonderful.
Hello. Good afternoon. I'm trying to get it on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, please.
Okay,
yes,
Adewale, just hold on for Temitayo.
I'm trying to get it to work.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I have two things I want to say. One is a question and the other is a comment. My question is, what's the price range of the Tesla car? Then on my comment is a follow on from the Abuja one. You talked about sharing water like people do in the community. So isn't it feasible already for me to have solar panels in my house and then just, share the electricity with my neighbors? That's one. I think it's feasible. The other comment is, I don't know if you have sociologists on your research team, but if you don't, I'd like to suggest you have to cater for these behavioral, matters that people have talked about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Temitayo. Adedayo. L-CAN, you can speak now. L-C-A-N. Hello? Okay,
hello,
we have Nura.
Can you
okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you
go ahead.
for the opportunity. I'll be smart with you. My question, I first of all appreciate the presenter. This is a very wonderful thing. When you are talking about smart energy, it can only work at environment. And from my observation, one of the things that's first important in any smart city is the citizenry. And that determines the level of technology, the level of understanding to be able to deploy it. A lot of questions have been asking me about that. My challenge is, my suggestion first is, we have this demographic in Nigeria, and each region has peculiar things. If we are talking about this deployment of this, I would suggest that we look for private entities to first of all test run it and get it right. and convince the people in the government to create a policy. A lot of factors are in that different between the case study you use, which is South Korea, I've been there, UK, I've been there. There are basic things that is right there. The way they deploy their technology initially, especially building structures in Nigeria and the way they can put into. Their own is already ready. Why Nigeria are not to be there? Even if ordinarily want to deploy it to a very small city or estate, the simple electrical system there can even cause a lot of problems. In UK, in South Korea, they have regulations that everybody follow before the installation and some other things. This go to Mr. Emeka, who's on the line, that help us and some other agencies can work on that. Secondly, is the area of maximizing resources we have. For us to be efficiently in performing this smart energy system, materials are required. Tesla and some other things. Is there any method, as we are putting in place a strategy to bring it on board into Nigeria, how are we going to really motivate them such a way that the manufacturing of some of those items can be locally done to bring the cost of implementing it here cheaper than expecting the importation either from China or from anywhere? Thirdly is, I know the issue of P2P energy trading. It is after we finish the first phase, we can now look at we have a kind of a closed environment whereby we can approach private entities who are doing a kind of estate and deploy this technology. My challenge is this, the last question asked it, most of the grid networks has been owned by discos as well as transmission. And a majority of them, like Keja, for instance, they are targeting estates for them to have their revenue. And I don't think it would be easier for us to deploy this kind of technology while you're making use of their infrastructure, or what are the policies behind it that make it more perfect? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, LCAN, Elkan. Over to Nura. Please, can you go ahead with your question? You can unmute your by yourself, please.
Hello.
All right, thank you. We can hear you.
So I wish to appreciate the lecture delivered by the presenter. I have a question and a comment. My question is, in a course of using electricity, there is tendency of accident. So in such a situation, when accident happens and you are the seller, and the buyer demanded you to pay for him, is there any provision on how to resolve such kind of situation? Because I don't know whether there is insurance policy that can take care of that or not. That is my question, which has to do with risks and resolution of damages in the course of usage of electricity. Then my comment is, mostly when you look at the way things are happening in our country, whenever anything that comes from abroad, especially from the Western world, it carries a weight by our government. In the course of your interaction with our government, do you use opportunity to encourage them to introduce issue of energy incentives that is done in other developed nations, whereby if maybe I opt for this kind of P2P issue, so my charges on other usage of electricity should be reduced through the usage of energy incentives, rebate, and things like that. So do you try to encourage government to look into that issue? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nura, for your concerns as regards liability and insurance and incentives. Okay, let's go over to Noah. Please, can you go ahead with your question or your comments, please?
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr. Bamidele, for the nice presentation. And some of my questions are actually being covered by some, so I wouldn't want to go into that. As an electrical engineer, I understand a little about synchronization although I look forward to the explanation to the questions asked by Nimot or so. However, the area I just want to point out is regulations. As far back as 2000 and say 2007 to 2009, when the issues of regulations really wreaked havoc in Nigeria with respect to the privatization of power sector, a lot of things were actually done at the government side. So currently, as you're carrying out your research, what are the updates on the national issues, especially coming from the National Electricity Regulatory Commission with respect to privatization of like this peer-to-peer electricity distribution? And then you can capture the regulations as it is on ground now, covering any RC and also the TCN aspect. That is one. And secondly, okay, I'm happy that maybe Engineer Kentola and Engineer Nuruddin are here that are coming from the Korean and the Nigerian Association of Engineers aspect. So all in all, these other engineering bodies, what regulations are on ground, that could allow for this peer-to-peer generation and distribution of power? So I would like you to look into that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Noah, for your concerns as regards regulations. So we'll move over to Tade Durojai. Please go ahead with your questions, your comments.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Okay, I want to thank the presenter. He has really done a very good analysis on this peer-to-peer power generation. And I'm happy that most of my questions have been asked. But I want us to look at the side of costing. Over the years, I've been privileged to work on a couple of different power projects, and currently I'm looking at some mini-grid projects not based in the city centers. And looking at the analysis of costs, in Abuja, for example, a residential place will pay about 20-something naira per kilowatt of electricity, and commercial will pay about 40 naira per kilowatt of electricity. Now, during some of these projects, we've got to realize that if you're running on generator, you pay about 90 naira per kilowatt of electricity, depreciating the generator life to 7 years. But the mini-grid projects are a little expensive. It's even in the rural areas, it's as high as 150 naira per kilowatt of electricity. So my question is, we have these designs in place. We have this this idea of the smart metering, the peer-to-peer energy consumption model and all that. But are we looking at what the cost is going to look like? Because, for example, let me give you a location somewhere at the border between Niger and Sokoto State, and Kebbi State, for example. A village where you don't even have access to GSM signals. The electricity cost on the mini grid is about 150 naira. They are willing to pay, but they also have their complaints. They feel it's too expensive. Personally, I don't know what the energy cost is in the UK per kilowatt of electricity. I don't have the slightest idea. But look, comparing with different regions of the world, are we looking at an optimal cost that will make people say, okay, I want to pay for this, I want to sell this, and I'm very happy to sell this to other people? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Tade Durojai, for your concerns as regards costing. So we'll go over to Umar. Please, can you go ahead with your question?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you very much for a fantastic presentation. I actually came late because I was participating in the burial ceremony of the Chief of Staff, so I had to rush to come and join you. this is just a tiny little word of advice to sink into your package. I was also an engineer running with this type of projects, and then I made a mistake. I became the secretary to the state government of my state. So I started working with politicians as a professional. This was when my eyes opened to the actual situation in this country. Majority of the people, irrespective of state, who are operating our economy are unorganized, informal, and marginalized.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Omar.
As an engineer, on what do I need to do? So now you have fantastic options here. And I think on your team, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
On your team, you need social scientists, people who are sinking their teeth into the communities to look at, the people who have got a tiny little stall selling banana, and the guy who is selling kerosene and frying pancakes all day. And so these are the people who, in my opinion, also need electricity so that we can be able to ramp up our economy everywhere. And I think you have many options here. And one advice I can tell you is that I know when get investors, how will these people pay? I would love to see an option whereby you give somebody electricity and you can be able to pay by giving you 3 tubers of yam, if you know what I mean. What you do with the yam, that's you. But I mean, that's what he has. So it's just my comment, so that these very interesting packages can be able to go down to the bottom of our pyramid. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Umar. Now now we'll go over to Engineer Emmanuel Akinwale. Please go ahead with your questions, your comments, your contribution.
Yeah, thank you, distinguished Prof. I remember you had come for the Nigerian Energy Forum a couple of times in the past. And because of the level of participation at this forum, I don't know whether you will be available to make the same presentation to a large section of Nigerian engineers, professionals who would be around, who would want to have, direct, practical, discussions with you and your team from Manchester during the forthcoming August meeting in Lagos. That's my question and comment. Thank you, Prof.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Akinwale, for your question as regards the availability of the presenter. So we'll go over to Mr. Emmanuel Amus. I hope I got that right. Please go ahead with your questions, your comments, contribution.
All right, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Yeah, my question is about the functionality of the system. Now, this smart grid, I want to find out whether it is scalable. For example, you start the network, you have your central controller, and you have 5 buildings connected to it. Now, is it possible, say 1 or 2 months later, you have 3 other buildings that will now be connected to add to the network? Is that practicable? Then my second question, is this, can this system be integrated with energy supply from the national grid, from our distribution companies? For example, we have in Abuja, we have the AEDC. Can you combine it in such a way that you have energy coming from the AEDC to supply you, and when the power is not available from AEDC, you now switch over to the smart grid? Is that workable? Thank you very much.
Can you allow him to answer the question before? Let him answer the ones that he has now.
We have only 2 more questions left. So
Okay.
do we go ahead with that? Yeah. So
Okay,
we'll
okay,
cut
just take
it.
those.
Yeah. So we'll take only the two. Yes. So so thank you so much, Mr. Emmanuel Amos. We'll go over to Titi Oluyide, please. Can you go ahead with your comments, your questions, your contribution?
Okay, thank you very much, Prof, for the presentation. It was quite insightful. My question is just on how transferable, or what do you, I know this is, you've talked about doing a demonstration, which is, I mean, obviously the way to go. You start on a small scale and then you can start to ramp it up. But in terms of how easy it would be to transfer the learnings to another source of renewable energy, so maybe something like biomass or you know, wind, or, you know, different things, because that would be, I guess it would be interesting to see what the differences are, what the differences you think might be, you know, at this stage. Obviously, maybe getting into a bit more detail might not be possible at this stage. So that's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt. Let's go over to, I think this is our final comment questions. This is the last person that raised their hand up. So we'll take your comment.
I'm raising my hand.
Oh, okay. Mr. Rafi, please, can you go ahead?
Good day,
ask a question also.
My name is Miss Tura, and thanks so much for the presentation.
Okay.
Yes. Please, I have one comment and one question. My comment is, okay, in Abuja, you talk about the Nigerian Intelligence Clean Energy in Marketplace for Abuja. I would like to know where in Abuja, and if there is a proper arrangement for maintenance in future. Then my request, is there any opportunity for young engineers like me to be trained in Abuja? Thank you, sir.
Okay, somebody spoke now that thank you so much, ma'am. Somebody spoke now that he's raising his hand. Please, can you go ahead? I can't see your profile, so please just go ahead speaking.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry I came in late. I joined in late. Like Omar Bondra said, I went to the Defense House for the burial of Chief of Staff, and I joined in late. And so if I make a comment that others may have alluded to, please pardon me. I happen not to have listened to the main presentation, but I am going to react to the comments made by people. From that, I could deduct and then just offer an advice as somebody who has been involved. And I want to toe the line of Omar Bindra, who was my colleague in government, and I want to reemphasize what he said, especially the issue of regulations and regulations. I know that Bamidele, the presenter, works in a well-regulated environment, where even within the electricity sector, you may have up to 20 or 40 or 50 regulations by different authorities that allows for innovations and all that. And so we'll be working at what are the standards to which people who are going to be involved, what standards are they going to live by, both in terms of quality of materials, in terms of service, and in terms of cost. Perhaps, maybe from what you are proposing, there is need for us to do a kind of, just like when you're trying to introduce a new vaccine, there's some clinical trials over a period of time, and then begin to do quality assurance and strengthening. And then before you engage in policy makers and political leaders, for them to buy in vis-a-vis the regulations in the country. I think that having developed the technology, the next level is to work on within the Nigerian environment. Where can you deploy that to be operated on for maybe 1 or 2 years, and people come and see it, and then look at it vis-a-vis what's existing, and then from there you can scale the development up to other areas. Otherwise, the establishment, the system will make you run away, because they will defend their turf, they will tell you can't do it, and all that. But I know technology is about challenging the existing institutions.
And if you're coming with a system that makes it difficult for those who are presently operating and benefiting from the system, they're going to knock you out. And so the better way to do is that get some people who are willing, who will serve as a pilot scheme, deploy it, and then engage some level of marketing that is necessary. And then, of course, from there, you're already doing so. I want to thank you for getting us. This is a very good innovation already happening through a meeting like this. People are coming in, people we never met before. We're coming in and contributing and seeing a lot of people for the first time. The only face I can see, I know, is Omar, and maybe others are hidden somewhere else all over. But I can understand we have 107 participants. The number is decreasing. And so I want to thank you and guide you. I hope that we look at material sciences, because when you finish developing the technology, how do you fabricate those ones in-house? What are the material sciences that are needed for those ones? It's good to put grids together, but what about the components? Who manufactures them? Who are they going to manufacture? Is our petrochemical plants good enough for all them? So you can see a whole organic form of issues that will come to ensure that any development works in a system. So the country as a system needs to, you need to investigate how the Nigerian system works, and so that we can begin to interrogate the bottlenecks that could come in such a manner that over a period of time, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be 1 year. It's not going to be 2 years. It may going to take a decade, 10 to 15 years before we can even get to that. These are my few comments. I want to congratulate you and wish that someone, I'm sorry I didn't listen, but if I can have a slide of that presentation, I will appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was
thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sorry, Zanzi. That was Engineer
thank you so
Mecca.
much, Mr. Eze.
That was Engineer. Just a minute. That was Engineer Mecca Eze, past president of NSC.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. We appreciate your presence here, sir. So we would like to take all. I think we're done with the questions, sir. Over to you, sir. Mr. Engineer Bamidele.
Can I have a question, please?
Okay, I think that's Engineer Balogun, right?
Yes.
Please,
okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Professor. I just want to ask you one question. I myself, I live in the UK. I'm not electrical engineer. I'm mechanical engineer and industrial designer. I am not so much introduced into Nigerian environment, but you are. And my question to you is, I, as a user of IoT in machine manufacturing and design, I just want to know, do you have any experience with the farming industry? That is my question. Do you have any experience with Nigerian farming industry? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So over to you, sir, and Bamidele, Professor Bamidele. Let's take the responses now. I think we can unmute your, okay.
All right. Oh, interesting. Lots of questions. So where do I start from? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, so interesting. So I'll try and address this, but let me, because the one that is a bit not electrical engineering or electricity is from Engineer Balogun. So I'll just answer that quickly. And maybe this can help also in kind of summarizing some of the things I've said before. As I presented, or when I was introduced, my professorship or chair is actually in intelligent infrastructure systems. So what it means is that we make any dumb system smart. So that could be water, agriculture. So I have a number of projects in the area of water management, a number of projects in the area of building management and so on. So any kind of infrastructure, we secure it, we make it smart. So just an example, we just submitted a fund using AI in trying to, in agricultural area, actually with Nigeria, specifically Nigeria. And what we're trying to create is a new IoT device that will give you information about the soil sample, where the soil is better than the other, and the type of, using some, anyway, without giving too much away about it, but yes, we are doing that because, you know, within my team, as I presented right from the beginning, we have people with different skills sets, but specifically in the area of IoT and making things smart. Okay, I hope that answered the question. The answer is yes. So what I would do first and foremost is, as they say in my language, if you want to eat a big moi moi, you take it from the very tiny part of it. So I'll start with the easy ones. So so that we can, the more complicated one, we can bring them together. And what I will do is just give a short presentation that will hopefully answer all the questions. So the first one that I think is easy is, I think it's Engineer Emmanuel Akinwole, about presentation to the engineers and in Lagos in August. Yes, I think the answer to that is, yeah, we can talk off camera. It's likely going to be yes, especially if it's going to be Zoom, then, you know, we'll make time to do that. Thank you. So there's an engineer Mistura that asked about where in Abuja, I think the place is called Kuje area or something, opportunity for engineers to be trained. Yes, I do that regularly. Actually, I was in Nigeria last year around August. So I organized a seminar and invited engineers mainly to a workshop in Lagos. And my plan was to actually have a similar thing this year for a set of engineers as well, specifically in the area of smart technology, smart energy, industry 4.0, and basically talking about the future. You know, I know we are here and we are kind of talking about the challenges that Nigeria or African countries may have now. They actually, those challenges do present opportunities for us, which actually countries that don't have such challenges, you know, it's already saturated with, you know, all these things, and they don't actually have the room to think sometime for the future. I think we are in a very good place to leapfrog. That's my opinion. So I do that regularly. I visit a few universities in Nigeria where I make presentations. So if you are interested in that, we can also, I'll share my email address at the end of this talk. So about engineer Amoda asked question about smart grid, is it scalable? Well, actually the whole concept is built on distributed network, which is everything is distributed, it's not centralized, and also the fact that it is autonomous and the fact that it is scalable. The whole idea is that you can have 5 things today. If you want 100, all the 100 just come in and it carry on like that. Of course, with you have more people, then you have to build, you will need to kind of think about the control of it. Can this be added to the national grid? I think I explained that previously. The whole concept of peer-to-peer energy trading is really that you want to, I think this may answer some of other questions as well. So let us get this very clear. Peer-to-peer energy trading is about community generation and consumption. It's actually the whole concept is built on you being able to generate electricity and share it within a community. There's a lot of reasons for that. Number one is that actually, we know from research in the UK shows that over 40%, if not more than that, of the cost of electricity is based on the fact that it's generated far away. So it has to be transported over a long distance. It costs a lot of money to buy those cables and to maintain them. So actually, if you generate locally, you don't have to worry so much about the cable. So that's the whole essence of peer-to-peer energy trading. But we do know that that will not be enough. So peer-to-peer energy trading takes into account the national grid always. So, but it goes to the national grid only when the local generation is not enough. Okay, that's when you go to the national grid. And again, the reason why you will be discouraged from going to the national grid is actually the energy generated locally will be cheaper. It will be cheaper because it is actually a private network. It is not a long distance. It is very close to you. So you are not paying those charges, those 40% or so charges. So that's the reason why, you know, peer-to-peer is such a good idea. Engineer Titi Olide asked about whether other sources. Actually, what I showed in the virtual power plant, the whole concept of virtual power plant is not discriminatory. It's not. It's agnostic to the sources of energy. All is interested in what do you have here. So, so you have energy consumption from various sources, from biomass, from renewable, even non-renewable. All of them come together to come what you have in that virtual power plant. So the answer to the question is yes. This system takes, actually the one that we do in Abuja includes a huge generating plant actually. But the aim is that we use less of that diesel generator because of the issues that relates to using diesel generation. So Engineer Omaro Binodron, actually, thank you very much for your comments and your advice actually about trade by barter. Again, let me go back to what I said right from the beginning. If you look at the whole peer-to-peer energy trading, peer-to-peer energy trading is not just about trading actually. If you look at it has and sharing. So what is unique about peer-to-peer is that you are in charge. It's all about democratization of energy. So what I mean by you are in charge is this. If you are going on holiday and you know you have solar panel or your roof biomass, whatever in that, you can decide what you want to do with it. You could say, well, I want to donate this to the community center down the road. I want to donate this to my school. I don't need the money. You are in charge. You will be able to do that because it's about sharing and trading, not just about the trading aspect. And talking about the social sciences, absolutely. Actually, the project that I just completed, which I presented earlier on, the EU project, looked more of the social aspect of this because the behavioral aspect actually has very little to do with the technology. It's more about how people feel. I don't know if we were there earlier on when I spoke about comfort. So when you use central controller to control a particular building, to determine when you kickstart your heating or when you turn your AC on, you want to check the comfort level of the people. So there's the possibility that the comfort level of a female may be different from male, even people from different tribe, people from different background will be different. Yeah, that's not, you know, actually the calling of engineers like us, like myself. We develop this technology, but actually we need feedback from other people, social scientists, business people, marketing. We need people that is able to tell us the business model that we actually work. And that is what the whole of this project is about. I think Engineer Tade Duru the last spoke, you know, really well about the costing, and you know, it shows this somebody who is really on the ground. He's obviously in this space. So I would like to speak, maybe talk to you at the end of this program. But you know, just to bring this home as well, I think peer-to-peer energy trading is actually about bringing this down. It's the cost of mini grid is obviously expensive. It is expensive because we are looking at, you know, the cost of the capital expenditure, and there's the operational expenditure, the capex and the opex and all that. But actually, if you look at generation of electricity from, I don't know how, nuclear or hydro and the rest over a long distance, and you look at it over a number of years, and you look at scaling this up to everyone, which is what is going to really happen in the next couple of years. I think the economic of scale tells us that these prices will definitely come down. And it will come down drastically, even more, as we have new, innovative, disruptive technologies like the one that we're talking about now that can utilize the electric network in a smarter way. Example of that is arbitrage. So arbitrage is one of the things that we're looking at in my team, which is about how do you use your electric vehicle of the future to capture electricity when it is very cheap and sell it when it is very, you can make money from it. You see, when people begin to see this as not just about you don't see your car anymore as a car, and you see your car of the future as something that is actually part of your business economic income generation. The whole concept will change because people then want to use renewable, they want to use electricity in a different way, and you buy the car not necessarily just to drive, but for other purposes. And another thing that you will want to think about electric vehicle, like I said earlier on, is the fact that if you have a car park, you can have maybe 1,000 cars, parked there. If 50% of them are on being charged using solar panel, remember for the next 5 hours, many of them are not needed. Is there a way we can aggregate the whole of this and, bring them together in the virtual power plant more as a storage than as a car? So you park your car at the car park, and by the time you come back later in the evening, you have actually made money from your car rather than you paying to charge the car. So because it's about trading and sharing, then the whole concept of trade by barter is actually possible. So take for example, if you have an Uber or as a taxi, you may decide that, look, I generate electricity, I supply to the people in the neighborhood, and actually I don't want to get paid with money, and maybe I want to get paid in terms of transportation and mobility. So when I move around, I hop in your cars. You have a house maybe somewhere on holiday. When I go on holiday, I don't want to pay for the holiday. I want to go use your house somewhere abroad. I know I'm using some examples that are a bit more westernized, but actually I am a strong believer that these things are coming to Nigeria. And in my visit to Nigeria and other places, I have seen some of these things actually beginning to take place there. So, so someone spoke about that's engineer. Okay, Wes asked question about insurance, about resolution, about damages, about all that. I think I will answer that question. I will link that to engineer Noah's question about regulation. I will also link that to engineer Akin's question about Ikeja Electric. And the question about whether this will work here, because I think almost a good number of people said that this is not the concept that I've spoken about. We've tried it in South Korea. We're working in Canada, in the UK. I've also did some work in across Europe, even in Israel. And these countries are very different. And to be honest with you, you will be surprised to know, I won't mention countries, but you'll be surprised to know that some countries that you think are so far ahead, they are far behind some countries that you think they are not so advanced. And the reason for sometimes is that they do not have the baggages of the old countries. They do not have the legacy. So sometimes they have the opportunity to actually create something from scratch and then implement something, deploy and implement something that is really new. And this is an opportunity that I think we have in Nigeria, that instead of us really looking at it from, oh no, it's not going to work in Nigeria, we can look at it from another angle, that actually we have an opportunity here, that we can actually create a whole new landscape, which has not been done somewhere else before. So for a question about whether, I think that's engineer Temi Tayo, she asked the question about what is the distance that the Tesla car can actually drive. I think that's what she asked about. I think it's 225 miles, and the energy itself is 85 kilowatt hour. And she asked whether a Genco or distribution network are involved in our projects. There's also the question from engineer Akin about Ikeja Electric, a company like Ikeja Electric, are they involved in our project? Okay, and I think there are a few questions that are similar to that. So let me just talk about that project again, especially for those who are not in the room. First thing that we need to need to share about this project is the fact that it is funded by public fund. So this is coming from taxpayers' money from the UK, and this is part of the money that designated for international development. So like I said earlier on, it was awarded to us by DFID and UKRI, which is Innovate UK, the funding body that kind of manage projects like this. So actually, this is the first project I've been involved that involved Nigeria. And I was really very excited when we're writing the proposal. So before you get awarded this kind of project, this is more than £500,000 in pounds. Before you get awarded a project like this, you write a proposal. It's more of a competition. It's not an exam. It's really a proper. You are competing with other people with innovative advice. So some of these things have actually been addressed. They've asked about local contents. They asked about how you adapt this to the country that you talk, and they also think about whether you have the knowledge of the country. And because I've been visiting Nigeria since I came here over maybe 18 years ago, I visit Nigeria regularly anyway. And I'm in touch with engineers with universities across the country. So we were able to actually feed this into our proposal. Hence, the reason why it was one of those that were funded. So the whole concept is looking at this. So we have a school, and that school could be anything. It could be a private company. It could be anything within a community. And we are saying this school anyway, currently we need a diesel generator, we need any kind of different type of energy resources. Is there any way, but this school operates on its own. So when there's no power from PHCN, they kick on their diesel generator and then they carry on, and maybe they don't have solar panel. The question is, how can we address energy trilemma in this scenario, which is number one, can we increase or improve energy access for them and for the people around them? One. Two, can we reduce pollution? Can we reduce the impact of this diesel generator on the environment? Can we bring down the cost and therefore increase access? So these are the kind of questions that we're trying to answer. And the way we are answering it is very simple. Yes, we can actually demonstrate that this school may not need energy all the time, which means some energy are currently being wasted. Therefore, this wasted energy or unused energy or energy that have not been used to their optimal level can be shared with the houses around the community. And the community as well, is there any way that we can harvest energy from them where they are not using that energy, which the school can also use? So we've selected a good, reasonable number of people from the community, including the community leader, which we are engaging with. And that is very interesting. We actually have to sign contract with them in terms of, the community engagement itself is a big part of this project. So it's not just the technical aspect, it's actually liaising with the people within the community. And the aim is that as we install this, remember we're doing it off in quote free. They're not getting paid. They are not paying for any of the installation or the cost of this and so on. So we install it. The only thing they owe us and the DFID and Innovate UK is that they will allow that the school and the environment be used as demonstration, as a site where we can invite people, policymakers, engineers like yourself. We can hold seminars. And actually the aim is that my team will visit that place and teach students within that school about the impact of renewables, about how to connect all these things together. And then schools around, we also have opportunity to use this for experiment. Then we can use, because I know we've spoken about legislation, about regulation, about all this. But actually all around the world, this is not peculiar to Nigeria. Regulation is always a challenging thing because once you put that thing in paper, everyone is bound by that. Insurance, lawsuits and everything will be looking at that paper. So that paper has to be foolproof. It has to be really, really accurate. And it cannot just be accurate by us arguing or talking about it. We can only make it work when we have a demonstration, okay? A site like the one that we have here that we can use to convince the regulatory body that look at the evidence, look at the business model here, look at the fact that, and remember, for those who were not in the room earlier on, the process that we are doing, we're using is this. This is our methodology. We have a site in Abuja. This is a practical, real life environment. Real people are living there, okay? So here we will connect everything together to form a small microgrid. We have virtual power plant there. We have a peer-to-peer algorithm to optimize everything. Then in my lab at Manchester Met, we are installing a replica of that, almost exactly the same, but in a control environment. Okay, then the third layer is actually that we are having a software that we then simulate exactly what we have in Abuja and exactly what we have in Manchester. And that software will take data from each of the Abuja sites and the Manchester site to optimize this software. So once we are clear that this digital twin or this software is working accurately, what we can do with the software is to then scale the software up to say, well, there are only 10 village people from this village that we are supplying electricity, and these are the parameters of the energy sources and consumption and everything about them over the past 1 year. This is what the school is consuming, generating, and so on over the past 1 year. Can we make it in such a way, if we have 20 schools, but how many houses can we supply in this way? Then we can look at the cost of the battery, cost of the solar panel, cost of other generation resources. How do we integrate this? And so we can all do that within the software. And this is all over the world. This is the way you inform planning. This is the way you come about regulation. I mean, COVID is an example. A typical example. I don't know. I follow the Nigerian one, but at least obviously because I live here, I follow the UK version very well. Every time you will hear that they will say, well, our modeling is telling us X number of people are going to die. Our modeling is currently telling us this is the number of beds, and by next week, this is the number of beds that will be occupied, and we are getting to the peak. If we do this, this will happen. The way they came to that conclusion, and they are so confident, and they are planning based on that model, is because there was at a time a test bed which has been optimized in a real environment, and that test bed can then do more than the real environment. Okay, so this is what this project is. This project is really an all-encompassing opportunity to make this happen, to demonstrate it, to hopefully replicate it, to train and to inform. And in all this, we'll be bringing like all the media around to see this, and get people from Rural Electrification Agency, people from the regulatory body and the rest to come and see what we're doing. But it's just early stage. We started only a few months ago. Hopefully by end of the year, things will have been fully deployed, operational, and we have maybe another 8 months or so just for data acquisition, data and optimization, and then dissemination of our work. I think in terms of less privilege, I'm kind of rounding up now because I know I've spoken for a while. If there's anything I haven't covered, please remind me. In terms of, so I've talked about sharing. So it's about trading and sharing, not just trading. So trade by barter is possible. And also because it's also about sharing, the idea of less privilege is not really a problem here. Remember, the whole concept, like I said, is the villagers, the people we are actually giving electricity here, they don't normally have electricity. So this, instead of being a concept for the privilege, is actually a concept that can actually be used as a tool to help the less privileged. So an example, if you have maybe, I don't know, a big church or a mosque or a big factory, which we have all over in Nigeria, that because they have to operate, they are operating anyway. It's in their business. If they don't have electricity, they cannot survive. They need it. So they have their means of generating electricity already. What we are demonstrating here is that actually this could be your own social corporate responsibility, kind of giving back to the community. You can use this to do that, right? So like this school is a means of giving to the people in the community. And when you don't have enough from both the school and the community, you get from the grid, all right? So the grid is connected. That's not a problem. So we call it here Living Lab, which I showed you earlier on. I mean, the site within my university where we try out smart city. We are connected to the grid, okay? But our aim is to have 100% self-generation, meaning we don't need the grid. When the students are not there, for example, we have only the staff and researchers and so on. We actually could survive with just the solar and maybe the electric vehicle and the combined heat pump. And during summer, when we don't need to heat, we may just, but there are times when we have to go to the peak. If we get to the peak, then we get more energy from the grid. And there are times actually where we have excess. So the building may be consuming maybe say 300 kilowatts of energy, whereas what we're generating from the solar maybe is double of that. What we do with that is either we trade it with people in the neighborhood or we actually sell it back to the grid. So I hope I've answered most of the questions, but if there's anything that is, then lastly, in terms of working with people in Nigeria and trying to understand the landscape, I must tell you, yes, it's a big thing. I wouldn't underestimate that at all. I didn't underestimate it while we're writing the proposal. And I always tell my colleagues that, look, when anything comes to Nigeria, we really need to understand it with no assumption. But lastly, what is good about this proposal is that actually it wouldn't have been funded if all of us, I mean, all the partners were to be from the UK. So we actually have a partner in Nigeria, via Energy, that is based in Abuja. And these guys have been working in this space, solar installation and different things for a number of years. So they understand, they also, they are inputting into this because they are the main partner in Nigeria. They are the lead from Nigeria. There's a company in the UK called Q Energy, the lead in the UK. I am the academic lead, and the three of us are kind of working together. And I know I've said finally, but I will say another finally, which is basically the aspect, the role that researchers actually play in this. I think as a country, we need to begin to appreciate every aspect of the sector, both the people on the streets that actually need this, the young people, the shop, the barbers, and so on. We need to understand them. And that takes a lot of research. In terms of materials that have been spoken about, how do we develop this? How do we have our own? Again, that is about research. And it has to be things that we think ahead rather than, sometimes we talked about now, what we cannot do now. What we can't, no, Nigeria is hard, it's now. Yeah, it's true. But actually many other countries, even the one that we think they are advanced, they are thinking about the future and they are planning far ahead into the future. So I think industry, academic, and government, including NGOs, need to work together a lot more in Nigeria. And actually, if you ask the UK, people that live here, they will tell you they need to work more as well. So it's not just Nigeria, but maybe we need to do a lot more than we're currently doing. So thank you. I'm still happy to take questions if they are still here. Why I'm aware of our time. It's gone fast. Right?
Yeah, we've spent 2 hours already.
Already.
So, Engineer Shegun, can I have the floor, or you want to say something?
Go ahead, ma.
No, please go ahead, ma.
Do I have the floor?
Yes, you do. Go ahead, please. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, then you may need to mute every other person because there are some noise on the background. Okay, thank you, Professor Bamidele Adebisi. We appreciate this a lot. And we have a certificate for you for this presentation. That's the first thing. I would like Engineer Shegun to please display the certificates.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to get that in your mail later today. And there are many questions in the chat room.
Yeah, I can. I can.
Yes. So what we're going to do is that we're going to print that out, or we're going to access all of it and send it to you by mail, so that you can have appreciate the kind of questions that people are asking, and if there is anyone that you have answers to, you would answer them and we'll pass it to those people. Engineer Shegun, there was something you did the other time. I don't think we remember to do it today. We did not take attendance. You could have
for
sent
the
in
Google form. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I missed that.
I totally forgot. Yes, because that would have been a way to send everyone that came the materials that we used, and if anyone has a question, we'll be able to answer that. We will not miss that the next time.
And we can
Okay,
advise
please.
those who are online now to quickly drop their email on the chat room. Just drop your email there. We'll have
Okay,
it.
so you can access it from there. Okay, please.
Yes.
Okay, please do that if you would do. Thank you very much. Then also you see we've had, this is the third e-lecture we're having. The first two, we had a crisis with attendance because our capacity was just 100 participants. But now after the second one, we decided that we needed to upgrade that. It means we have to pay much more. That's the interesting thing. You know, for the basic subscription, it's just less than 10,000. But when you have to ask for 500 participants, you are paying, like 5 times of that. So, and it's a monthly payment. It's not something that you pay once and forget about it. It's a monthly thing. And for an organization that does not have regular sponsors, we know how this can be. We are all in this thing together. And that is why we have been requesting for sponsorship or advert placements. If you are in this business of energy, for example, we're going to attract people that are interested in your business. You can actually place an advert. So instead of displaying for sponsorship, we'll be displaying your advert in that place. And of course, you can, if you have large meetings, that you think you need more than, you're going to host more than 100 people, you can actually rent our platform for a fraction of the price that we paid, so that we can share this thing. This is about trading and sharing. I think I'm using the lecture. Okay, so I would like to appreciate everyone who has been here. I want to appreciate the past presidents of NSC and of APWEN who are here. Engineer Meka Eze, I saw you on the platform. Engineer Nkechi Sigwe, past president of APWEN, you are here also. I want to appreciate Engineer Bindir. And of course, so many people that joined from the UK and from the US. That is the beauty about this online training. These are people who have been interested in what APWEN is doing for a long time. But because they are far away, we have not been able to tap from the wealth of experience. Now we are bringing them on. We thank you very much, Titi Oliide, Engineer Dayo, Engineer Bayo Jekaifa. You are all here. Thank you. These are people that joined from the UK, from the US. Of course, Engineer Ismail Balogun, the person that gave us the paper on design thinking. Thank you all so much for coming, and it's a really great pleasure to have you. We will continue with this, and like I said, we'll continue to develop on this and get better and better. We are bringing all these things, not just for people to hear. I've been seeing in the chat, people are saying, when are we going to start walking the talk? As we listen more about this, I know 1 or 2 people will get inspired and they will do something with the experience they already have, and our country is going to be better. And of course, I will appreciate Engineer John Adu, who loaned us the moderator. Engineer Shegun, thank you so much, and Zansi for doing a great job at this. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Okay,
thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Engineer Funlola Ojelade. And for everyone that took out the time to be a participant, it's been over 2 hours. We want to say thank you very much for your time. We appreciate you, and we look forward to reaching out to you again. And we also look forward to you being a part of our e-learning platform thereafter. And also for those who have interest in advertisement, like Engineer Folola said earlier, you can contact the Engineer Folola or any other executive of APWEN, and they will avail you of the necessary information and modality. Thank you very much, everyone. Do have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
And take
Thank
good care
you
of
for
yourself.
having me.
Thank you.
Safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
The entire Thank you
Remember
so
to
much.
drop your email in the
Much
chat.
appreciate you, Prof. Thank you.
Please, we still need the presenter's email also. Email of Engineer Bamidele or
Yes,
Professor Bamidele.
yes, Professor Bamidele, please, can you drop your email address?
Thank you.
Mama walking here, man. Oh, bro.
They are going.
So I'm sure everyone have dropped their email. That's why we are waiting so that we cannot drop our emails. And the minute that's done, we're going to end the meeting. So please, if you have not, you can go ahead and drop your email. Thank you.
We are still waiting for Professor Bamidele's email.
Someone asked if participants could have certificates of attendance. No, participants cannot have in this one. Only the presenter.
We are waiting for the presenter's email address.
Is it still online?
It's no longer online, so I think maybe we'll get that.
I'll get it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much once again, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye.
We're going to end the meeting now. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.